I'm a good therapist.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to have our presenter for the Seniors and Cannabis, Ms. Leslie Stone. Please give her your attention.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and join us today to learn about seniors and cannabis. So first, I wanted to start off by thanking the New York Chamber of Cannabis Commerce for allowing us this opportunity to share this information today, and to tell you guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, sign up for membership, because this is a platform where you can come learn and cultivate with other like-minded industry individuals to grow this industry and moving forward. For many of you, some of you know me and some of you may not. I'm known as Leslie Stone, Queen of Cannabiz. I've been in the industry for almost 10 years now, reigning out of Harlem. I started my journey basically by learning, education. Initially, I wanted to be in the industry, and I saw the opportunity before it emerged, and understanding that there was going to be a lot of things coming down the pipeline that I didn't know, and most of us don't know even now. So I saw that there was going to be a huge opportunity to educate individuals. I had worked on Wall Street for a number of years, so I had decided at that point I wanted to get in, and I wanted to become the Bloomberg of cannabis. Now, what is that? That's the person who disseminates education, information, and opportunity. So I created a show to do that. In doing that, it allowed me to travel across the nation into a lot of the legalized states, and it gave me a breadth of knowledge. It allowed me to acquire a network, but most importantly, it allowed me the opportunity to absorb information, to be able to bring it back to us. And that's what I've done. So the one thing I was very disturbed by when I started this journey back in 2016, and I went over to California, was that, well, let's just start here. Who used the most medications, prescription drugs in America? Seniors. So it was very interesting to me throughout that time that no one had really decided to address that need, that population. But we all know that seniors have always been the forgotten demographics for whatever known reasons. However, now we are living much longer lives. Our mortality rate has been extended. And due to technology, there's just a lot more that we can do to have a quality of life. And in addition to that, we also know that if you incorporate wellness, which is more diet and exercise, it's going to extend your lifeline. Well, up until COVID recently. But ultimately, there was a gap, and I could not understand that the population that used the most medicine was not being addressed. But then they said they legalized this for medicinal purposes. However, I see that as an opportunity. And so I decided to take on that and utilize that as my springboard to create my brand, which is Golden Hands. And I was inspired by my mom. Now, at the time, my mother was in her 70s. She had been on oxygen for a number of years. She had COPD, she had cancer, she had sleep apnea, and she was taking 18 prescription drugs. I was on this journey, my canna journey, and I was traveling all over the nation, but my mother was withering away. I was calling her, and she could barely have a conversation with me on the phone. I went to see my mom, and she had gained a tremendous amount of weight. She had become immobile because of the weight gain. She was on oxygen, but once again, the shortness of breath was causing her to not have energy. She could barely move. And she was taking all these pills. She had a box of pills, but at the same time, her life was withering away. Now, that's my mother. Now, I had met a lot of other patients, but I didn't know who they were before cannabis, but I knew who my mother was. So once I was able to see my mother wither away, and they had told me at one point, back in 2018 at the beginning of the year, that my mother had 6 months to live. So it was at that time I decided I have to save my mom some kind of way. I have to do what I can to help her. And I knew cannabis could, but I knew she would never ever take it under any circumstance. Although she smoked the hell out of cigarettes. Okay, she smoked the hell out of cigarettes. But she opposed cannabis to the utmost. She had always told me, because I had indulged in it in younger, and she used to tell me it was the devil's drug, and you know, you was gonna go to hell, I had a smoking demon and all these other things. And so I spoke to some of the people I was working with, and I was asking them, how can I get my mom to take this medicine? I need her to take it. So the thing I realized is that when you're dealing with older people, they have a comfort zone. You know the thing, it's like you can't teach them something new, right? They're set in their ways. So it's like, how do you break that? Well, the first thing I believe it starts with trust, right? You can't go in and tell somebody what to do if they don't believe you or, you know, trust in you. You just can't tell another adult what to do. And especially our parents, right? You can't really tell your parents what to do. So my mom was like most parents. She was like, listen, I'm not taking anything besides what the doctor told me to take. However, I'm watching her wither away with all the side effects. And so I started to tell her, Mom, maybe what the doctors are telling you are it's not the best thing for your health. But of course, me not being a doctor, she wasn't listening to me. And so I decided to just kind of give it to her anyway. You know, I had to get it to her. So I understood who my mother was, her behaviors, as how she consumed things, you know. So I really played in on her palate. And I started to give her things she enjoyed, but it all had cannabis in it. So about 6 months into this, once again, now she's lived past the lifeline they had given her. Then she's reached her 6-month threshold. And she's beginning to get a little more, because my mother was a firecracker, first of all. She was a feisty little lady, you know, with a lot of life. But like I said, once again, she started to wither away. She wasn't socializing. She was unable because she was pretty much bedridden from medicine, side effects. And then all of a sudden, I started to see her well-being being recovered. She started to begin to call her friends again. She started to go and participate with some activities again. Most importantly, she was able to breathe better. I saw that she was sleeping better. I was able to have a conversation on the phone. She's watching me online again, so she's being active again. So it was at that moment I realized this was breakthrough. So my mom was really my patient zero. And she and I was able to create this program together unknowingly to her and utilizing her as my first patient, right? So with my mom, I started on a full-blown regimen of CBD and THC products, unknowingly to herself. And within 8 months, her recovery process was miraculous. The doctors couldn't understand it. And I had begun to take her off a number of medications. The only thing she stayed on was her high blood pressure. And they said that was mandatory, and she had some heart failure, congestive heart failure. However, within 8 months, she went from 18 prescription drugs down to 2. However, she was on a full-blown cannabis regimen. And it was at that moment I realized that what I've done for my mom, I could do for others. And unfortunately, in November of 2018, my mother passed away. And I was in California working for my cannabis client. And it was so heart-wrenching. And I told him, I said, you know, I'm trying to build this up, and in doing so, I've lost my mom. And I felt bad because I wasn't by her side. But she was so proud of this work. So I said, because I promised my mother that I would do something significant. So I made a lot of posters and bulletin boards, and my mom was like my poster child of the campaign. There's a number of other elders that I've worked with who are no longer here as well, including my mother. And they are all part of the campaign that I've put together with their visuals and their faith. So I won't remove that, because that's my way of paying homage to my elders, which is the upbringing that I think most of us have been instilled, although we too are forgetting that. So I pledged to myself and my mom that I would go around and help as many elders as I can. And that's what I've been doing for since 2018. And it's been a wonderful journey. I've started by educating them. Like I said, it starts with understanding who they are. And one of the biggest barriers to working with the senior demographics is religion, right? And it starts right there because my mother was a very religious woman. She was a Christian. So, you know, I couldn't go against God. There was no way I could, in her eyes, when I'm telling her to do something she believed to be against her religious beliefs. So, once again, it was about introducing her to something she was familiar with. She didn't know it was, like, she didn't want to smoke the joint. She would smoke a cigarette, but she would never smoke a joint. So I started to give it to her through her foods and just different ways that made her feel better. And most importantly, it began to become like known amongst the others, because she was living with some other elders at that time, and I used that whole population as my first group of individuals to destigmatize. And then after that, I realized that there was a need to create an actual line for these people, because once again, there was products out here, but a lot of the seniors can tell you that most of them, although some come from the hippie era and they're very familiar with weed, but a lot of them at this point in their life, when they're dealing with serious chronic illnesses, they don't want anything to make them high. They just want to get well. They just really want to get well. So understanding that, we also developed a product line to address that need. And it was a product line exclusively for seniors to help them with chronic pain, sleep disorder, mood modulation, and neurological issues. Now, the next biggest challenges we see for our population is that, okay, it's legal, but most of them aren't even aware of it. So that's why this education program is so core to allowing them to have the information to make the proper decision. However, even though you can provide them with the information, most of the time they still will not make this decision because of the beliefs that they have. So what we have to do is we have to actually incorporate the actual products, but getting it to them in a way that allows them to feel comfortable with administration. And so what do? You have to teach them how to administer the products. And that was another challenge, because once again, a lot of them are so familiar with certain ways of doing things, especially when it comes to medication. And what is the most familiar way to consume medicine for a senior? Orally, but with a pill. Pills is what they're number one. Everyone identifies with a pill. So we were able to create products that gave them the efficacy that they need, also allowed them to be familiar with the usage and how to apply it and to take it. So that's been the biggest challenge to overcome and face when it comes with the senior population. And then of course the next thing is, how can they afford it? Right? Most seniors are living on a fixed income. And the biggest challenge right now is because cannabis is not federally legal, so there is no insurance coverage whatsoever. So how can you deprive the population who needs the most medication and have no vehicle to get it to? So Golden Hands was implemented to be that platform to address the needs of seniors by providing them education, medication, and alleviation. But most importantly, at affordable price. Do I have any questions, guys? Thank you.
Would you say is presentation?
No, you're welcome.
Any workshops with different groups?
Yeah, pre-COVID, we've done a lot of workshops, and we are actually working within 5 states currently. But of course, everything was paused due to COVID. The senior population was isolated, so we didn't have access to them.
So in regards to letting the elderly know about cannabis, how do you go about doing that?
Well, it's mainly, first of all, building that rapport, right? You have to understand who they are. If you've been around the senior population, some are very lively, some are very withdrawn. So it's really about understanding their true behaviors. And that's just like medicine, it's all about the individual. So you have to create a regimen based on individuality and understanding who they are and what their impairments are.
Question. Okay, I'm 75 years old, so I'm one of the seniors. And 2 years cancer patient, okay, and glaucoma, so I do fit the description. And that is, marijuana is what brought me back when I was going through my chemo and radiation. And my daughter introduced me to it. Like you said, at first, I didn't want to take it. First of all, I'm not a pill person. I don't like a lot of medication, set my own ways, and I don't like doctors giving me this and that, because the doctors nowadays, they look in the book before they even know what you're going through and offer you pills, so I don't do that. And I'm taking medication for my blood pressure. My daughter is the one that introduced me to this, and at first I didn't want to take it, but then I got to the point where because I'm always up and about, I got tired of laying still in the bed. And I got up, I tried it. As soon as I tried it, I was up and sliding down the wall, to get to the refrigerator. And that's how I started eating. So it was a plus to me.
Now, let me ask you this question. What was your deterrent from wanting to try it, even though your daughter offered it to you?
Because years ago, in my younger days, I had smoked marijuana. But nowadays, I would never do it because I don't know what they have out there. It's not what we had back in the days. And I just didn't want to, keeping it real, I didn't want to put nothing in my system that I didn't know anything about. So and then because of my illness and being down, being an active person, I just got tired of being down, and I trusted my daughter. So that's how I got on.
So as you can see, it starts with the trust factor first and foremost. Even though it was your daughter, you still was apprehensive, and that's the programming. So when it comes to senior, it really requires a lot of reprogramming and re-educating. It can be very challenging. It can be very challenging because, once again, they're at an age where they have lived life already, and they feel like they know everything. Just like they say, sure, they can still learn, but it's hard to break that ceiling when it comes to the learning. However, once you get them to apply it or try it, they will experience the miraculous benefits. And before you know it, they're on board, right? I think one of the things that really I enjoyed most working with the seniors is because, when you speak to someone, our elder, she's 70, so how do I have the right to tell her no? And that's what I couldn't understand. Like, if you're someone of a certain age and you've lived life, who am I to tell you no, that you can't do this? And that was one of the biggest issues that I felt with most seniors when I met them, and they would express, like, always share the story how they used to do it, right? Oh, I used to do it, right? I was smoking, I was lighting up, so they knew about it. So, but it got to some point, based on beliefs, jobs, things of that nature, where they began to believe it was something they could no longer do. And that's where we have to really re-educate them and reprogram the mindsets. So it really starts with more psychological, right? And that's a big challenge, because how do you change an adult's perception of something?
It's hard.
Right? So it takes, it's something that you have to build. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's also, it's more than just, if you notice, because you said several things. So once you started to take the cannabis, you begin to become active again. So activity is also a core component to longevity, especially when you're older, because most of the conditions that you deal with as an aging individual is degenerative, okay? And that's all, it's no way to prevent it, but you can prolong it from occurring. Now, most of us, I'm looking around the room here, and I don't think there's no 20-year-olds in here. I believe most of us are suffering from some type of pain, some type of insomnia. I think chronic pain is the #1 issue in America. Since I've gotten into the cannabis industry, I didn't know how much pain, the amount of pain that people experience. And now I say pain is my game, right? Because I'm looking for people in pain, because I'm here to help you. Okay, there are a lot of different things that we can provide, but it's not just the medication. It's a regimen. It's a lifestyle. It's about activity. And if you're inactive, you're almost non-living to a point, especially as you get older. So when you speak to a lot of the Asian populations, the ones that I've seen the most severe illnesses are the ones who are the least active.
Yes.
So make no mistake, you can't just give someone these products and think they're gonna be okay. It's not that simple. It is a comprehensive regimen that comes with it. So that's what we've been able to identify to help them not only get on the medication, but to enhance their quality of life, which includes a lot of different things based on the individual and where their health is at that moment. So you have to come in and handhold them, walk along with them, and help them to identify how to really apply it, but not just apply it, but to get the proper efficacy from it, right? So as you can see, how long have you been using the products?
Well, only when I was going through the cancer, and then I don't do it now.
Okay. And are you experiencing any type of effects?
No.
Total
What do you mean
remission.
for my the cancer and the pain? Oh yes, yes.
Did you go through
definitely.
chemotherapy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, my chemo and my therapy is completed. But yes, I do get pain, but I go through that pain on my own. You know, I don't let it take the best of me. I don't let it get the best of me.
So currently you're still experiencing some pain, but you no longer take any of the CBD or THC product. You
No.
just adapted to it at this point. It's minimal.
But if I needed it,
Right.
I definitely take it.
Now, when you chose the product, which one did you use? What type of product?
I don't know because, like I said, my
Was
daughter
it
gave
something you
it to me.
eat? You know? was
Oh
it
no, no,
cream?
no! It was. I smoked it.
Okay, so you okay?
Yes.
Well, I
yes.
will say most aging individuals will opt out of smoking. They just tend to, I don't know, it's just something that I believe it just relates to reefer madness, I believe, in their minds. That's, so a lot of them will definitely refuse smoking. We always appreciate the ones that will, though.
I took whatever was necessary to get past what I was going through at that time. Because like you said, it was getting the best of me. I was this big, I didn't have any hair, I couldn't move, my color, discoloration, the chemo took my color and I was totally black, my hands was black. I was just lifeless, you know, and my kids seeing me like that, they knew, you know, no. We're gonna have to get her to do something. And then laying there, I just decided that, you know what, I can't go out like this because I'm allowing it to get the best of me. And that wasn't my life. So I got up, I was prayerful, I got up, and like I said, I just started making my way down the wall to the refrigerator, whereas before I couldn't even get out the bed.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing your personal story. That was powerful, so thank you for being transparent in that way. So since we're here in New York where the industry is new, what advice would you have for someone that wanted to start a business and service seniors specifically? What recommendations do you have, especially since you also come from a finance background, so you have experience being a business person?
Well, it's all about, you know, having the right relationships. Everything starts with relationships. In this business, it's not just relationships too, it's also credibility. Because once again, you're dealing with medicine and science. So I believe that a lot of times people need to know that they want to trust you. You know, they have to trust you to tell someone how to pretty much live their life or to take care of their lives. So I believe the most important things is to be able to establish, to trust with the individuals that you want to work with, and then also having yourself in the position where you have credible, you know, information. Credibility is really key because we're dealing with medicine and science.
So is there any certain credentials you have to have in order to go into this business, since you said we're dealing with medicine?
Now, and when you say which way would you want to explore it?
You know, because you're saying that you're dealing with medication, so do you have to have some type of introduction to medication or some type of degree in medication? When I say degree, like college?
No, well, of course. Well, let's just say this: it's going to be very different. Yes, you definitely credibility is very important. I mean, it's hard for someone to take the advice from someone that they don't believe or feel to be legitimate, right? Especially if you're telling me what to do with my health.
That's the first thing I would ask.
Right. So once again, it's about really, you know, having the credibility to instruct people, and that has to have, you know, a track record. You know, it's not something you say you do. You can show that you've done it before. Because once again, you don't want to ever misinform someone, because we're dealing with seniors and health, and if you do anything wrong, you could potentially,
Liability.
you know, liability and mortality. So you definitely got to know what you're doing when it comes to speaking to the individuals in that respect.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I wanted to know, how do you know exactly like the proper dosage for a senior? How do you know if they would rather need indica or sativa or maybe a hybrid regimented plan? Like, does that all come from just your personal research that you would do, or does it come from like this wonderful elder said, going through an accredited program?
It's all individualized care. Now, here's the thing: so no one can tell you currently right now because there's not enough evidence to how to do so. So to tell you exactly what or how. So right now we're still in, like I call in the medical terms, in more clinical trials. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
We're still more in clinical trials because right now it's more about learning how to really administer. There is no definitive as of yet, okay? There's definitely things, guidelines and things of that nature, but those things are constantly evolving, you know, every day, and that's another thing. You have to stay abreast because every day something new comes down the pipeline. So you gotta really understand where the laws are, what's happening there at that time. You know, it's this today, it could be something else tomorrow. So you gotta stay in the front of that at all times.
Okay, and just to piggyback on that a little, how do we protect ourselves? Let's say we wanted to get into this in New York. How do we protect ourselves from the law, from the medical field? Because, you know, the medical field may fight us. Some areas of the medical field may want to collaborate with us or with people like you, but there may be others who may look at us as competition, cannabis professionals. How do we navigate that so we can still help people and not be ridiculed or taken out of business because we're going against?
Well, I think, that's a loaded question, number one. That is a question I do not have that answer, because the one thing I will tell you is that in the cannabis space, you have to really, really do things properly. If you've never known anything, like, what's your background?
I'm a high school teacher.
Okay, so then you're definitely paperwork intensive. So here's the thing, in this space, everything's about compliance. Everything's about documentation, right? So you have to know how to document things, and once again, you know, you have to understand how to comply with a lot of those protocols as well when it comes to dealing with these individuals. So it's a very thin line, because once again, it's a lot of liability that comes into place when you're dealing with people and administering medicine. So it's not something that one takes on without having the knowledge and the security behind them, because, you know, like I said, there's tremendous liability there. And you have to have a lot of measures in place to protect yourself at all times. Any other questions? Okay.
Is there any way that anybody here can get in contact with you if they have any questions?
Oh yes, you can definitely find me on Let's Talk Cannabiz. That's LetsTalkCannabiz. We have a website, .tv, Instagram, everything is Let's Talk Cannabiz, B-I-Z, not biz, B-I-Z.
CANNABIZ. I have one more question.
Yes.
.tv. One more question. Do you train people?
Yes, I do a lot of educational programming work.
Like train people to. Okay, thank you.
Actually, I used to do some education with NYSHR quite a while ago, pre-COVID. I did a lot of education with the residents there as well, just to kind of keep people on the forefront.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, thank you for that.
No, thank you guys very much. Thank you for your time. So you think everybody got what they needed? I think they did. I always pay attention.
Everybody ask questions, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, this is family now, but I wanted to do a public service announcement, but I didn't wanna interrupt. Our membership is $100, this is a converted, for the weekend. That's what I was asking.
She said for the weekend.
Just public service announcement. Membership
Yes,
is
ma'am.
$100 for the weekend. Please join. That's it.
You got it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Mika Bedroom.
Where you from? Are you from Brooklyn?
Nah, my lady is from Brooklyn.
I feel like I've seen you. I used to do stuff in Red Book a lot.
I probably travel a lot with my dad because he performs a lot, so he's a musician. So I might have seen you there. He's in Billy Robbins, if you don't know. I'm not sure. And my mom did a lot of community service events. So
Who's your mom?
her name was Sharon Robbins, and she passed away the same year your mom passed away. But in same to you. So but they did a lot of community service work, and she acted, and he's a musician. He used to sing with Beauty Express back in the 80s and stuff like that. So a lot of Apollo, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. Clinton Hills, near Fort Greene. What about you?
Okay, Harlem.
Okay. They're revitalizing both of our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Everything looks so much better.
You brought us up and thank you for that.
I couldn't open it up. I have a certificate for, I didn't know. That's what you want to do.
Part of that.
She's from Harlem.
There you go, there you go. Okay, see what happened.
Right.
So, same change. Okay, so. See what people out this went legal in 2014. I went to the very first conference ever to happen in New York in 2014.
That's when they were upset.
Okay, yeah, see.
I thought this was just.
There you go. So here it is, 2015. They passed compatible units, okay? They issued 10, listen, this is what you have to do. No, they do, no, I do holistic health. They do a, what is it? They certify 10 companies. Listen, so people don't know the cannabis history, that's what the history of where we are, so you know where we're going. So, they certify 10 companies. And they give them what's called vertical integration. What does that mean? Those 10 companies, they own the entire market. And what is it? They do cultivation, manufacture, processing, and control. That's the whole supply chain. Medical. Now here's the deal. You gotta understand what that meant is that these guys already have a market. They have a pretty much market for almost 10 years already.
So they can just easily
In the medical
flip,
field, just-
so they can just flip and turn it over.
So you gotta understand, they're not gonna give it to them, they give it to them. So now, they're here and they are monopolizing the market. So now, they've already set up, yes, they got those are those people that are and then there's another thing that they're not telling you. To set up a cultivator facility in the middle, which is gonna be a minimum. So about
This is my first time.
you know, how many of us, or rather, you know, how many even small people, so it takes political.
You know, I didn't know nothing about that. You know, itinerary.
To see is that.
Yeah.
So that's already done. It's pretty cool.
I get on Colorado, District 23 of Queens.
So, but there was a lot of ancillary businesses that there was a lot of ownership that we can still be a part of. But we,
This is part of Queens, wholesale is over here.
unfortunately, if we don't
So,
have the
Queens,
resources to
Jamaica
have
houses there, Jamaica's in the middle, wholesale
I
is
believe,
there.
how
I'm from
houses,
Queens, I
that,
come
that's
from,
kind of,
I've lived in all the places.
I always tell people this, look at affirmative action. What did it really do for us? You know about affirmative action?
My church is the family
So
church.
it was all about diversity, inclusion, blah, blah, blah. I come from Puerto. I work in Washington. Affirmative action.
It's near the
I can tell you that I was only by four leaders. That's what one person
Ability
to check the box, because they only have one. Yeah.
So you can be compliant. What is it, no matter where you are.
So you gotta understand all of that to really get this, right? So, you know what we're finding is
I
that
don't live out
there's a
I used to live in
lot of
Queens. I
gaps.
used to live over there.
You gotta understand, you gotta identify those
That's
gaps.
why my church is not here. Now I just go to church.
And that's
Over
not
there,
in
church
forefront.
online
See,
now.
right now,
And now church is
you know,
on Facebook.
people say it's on your country, you know, but nobody else knows how much people are. What I mean, so that's what we gotta know, because if you start business, like I tell people, when you hire someone, think about it. Whenever you go to a job, nobody tells you I can't do nothing. Who does that? So what they say, right, everybody goes to the at some point you realize what they can't do. You wanna know, when you're getting someone, especially for a job, you wanna know what they can't do. Because then you don't wanna give it to them.
Yeah, that's, that is the money body, my body, so, people, how,
I don't know, I said they don't think it's my birthday when I go to the bar dressed up. She dressed up. I think it's my birthday. It'll be all
You really getting your drink on, huh? What's the brand of this? Huh? Come on down to my food. Come on.
And see, here's what the thing is. When you're doing this, you gotta know what your value proposition is.
Something like that, I don't know.
Most of us don't know our value proposition. So what's the problem? Somebody can take advantage of it. You don't know what, how you really add value to somebody, then you can easily manipulate that, right? So, a lot of our guys right now in this industry that wanna transition, they don't know their value proposition. And that's gonna be their detriment.
You gotta put them
right,
in. They don't have the skills.
And remember, I think what Bryce always told me, especially
Please tell me mother's
MC
phone.
Hammer and he was at MC Hammer in Tyson. 2 years more successful with his hand. They went out there and just did a business acumen. Like, they say that, they try to make it like this. They surrounded them with a team, but their team was in their one of their team. That's like if I'm your lawyer, you're not asking me to financial, got your best one. Just following your money here and there.
whatever it is.
Exactly.
Because that's
So we already have a brand and trying to when it comes to.
I'm trying to make it a full body, I keep bringing it down so fast.
They like each other long enough to make
And it's very scary.
I love you, let's just tell each other enough to make some things, and that's why I'm here. Can get a lot of things back on.
I was downstairs to bring us
What time is the party tonight at the office?
10.
We get close to this workshop. Oh, Mama Lord, how you doing, Mama? How are you? I'm doing good. God bless. How you feeling? Good. Did you drink your water? Okay. Okay, as long as you're drinking your and you ate your food. All right. I'll talk to you later. I'll be down at the end of the month. I'll come see you at the end of the month. Okay? All right. Love you. All right. God bless.
You know, I've been never
She pulled them out, so
I'm good. Well, you're okay. You probably just need some of my food.
It's
10 times.
It's right.
Probably just need some of my food.
I know about the one here.
I said you probably just need some of my food. Mm-hmm.
I'm going
I said you probably just need some of my food. So we'll be back on Tuesday, okay?
I can't talk that soon. You're a dog.